hope you're doing well. This is the EMU Drumulator. I feel like every major synth manufacturer has to have one of these, which is a drum machine that is named after a very successful synthesizer. Some of them were very successful, like the Drumulator, and some of them were very unsuccessful. And this practice stretches all the way back from the 80s when this was released, up to modern day, because we have this, an early example, which was released in 1983 in wake of the vastly popular Emulator, and Emulator 2 specifically. Another example from the 80s as well is the sequential drum tracks, which was released in the wake of the 6-track and the multi-track. And for a more modern example, the Korg drum log. I feel like everybody except maybe Moog has done this. Although, come to think of it, they also made the DFAM recently, so I guess you could consider that a very similar thing with the very popular Mother 32. But this is a very cool, not insubstantially sized drum machine from 1983. It's very hefty and built out of metal primarily. On the front, we basically have 4 individual drum pads, which you can assign 12 different sounds to. That ranges from your typical bass, snare, toms, cowbell, claps, hats, cymbals, to some cool other percussion sounds like a rim sound, a clave, and these 4 pads are actually quite responsive for both how old they are and the style, because it kind of just seems like a momentary switch. And they are pretty good, pretty solid, pretty responsive. And these are, of course, digital samples, as were many of the drum machines of the 80s, like the 707 and the 909. This one's sounds are more reminiscent of something like a 707 or a Lindrum. It has kind of beefier ROM samples. In later models, there was MIDI control, but this one does not have that. As for the layout of the synth, like I said, we have the 4 pads here, we have all of our different sounds here, we have some cassette options here for saving and loading stuff, we have a bunch of stuff for the sequencer up here, we have some tempo, accent, and level controls, which are for each of the individual drums. We have a mix volume, a metronome volume for recording to the pattern. We can set an external clock, and then this is basically our only control for the whole thing. This is to play or stop the sequence, and then something that was noted to me by the repair person who fixed this up into tip-top shape, which he was marveling at, are the individual outputs on the back. They are RCA, but you do have individual outputs for every single sound on the Drumulator, as well as a bunch of different CV capabilities for connecting to different gear. You can store up to 36 patterns and 8 songs on this unit, and it does indeed have a sequencer built in. It's a little bit of a goofy sequencer that you probably have to read the manual to figure out fully how to use it, because some of the button presses are a little strange. And a quick aside about the manual is that it is quite a good read. It starts off by telling you that you can use the manual to, quote, line bird cages as kindling when starting a fire in the fireplace, as the raw material for creating paper gliders, or, most importantly, as a guide to help you get the most out of the Drumulator. Isn't that dandy? It is a very thorough manual, and I will give it that. It does a very good job of explaining how to use all of the different functions of the Drumulator. It's not too complicated, and it is at times snarky, which I enjoy, of course. I'm very lucky to have both this manual and a full other set of ROMs for the Drumulator, which you can use to get different sounds in it. I have everybody's favorite set of ROMs for the Drumulator because of its popularity with bands like Tears for Fears, Bjork. arpege mode. And of course, I'm talking about the rock drums that were created in collaboration with John Bonham. These ROMs were created in 1984 and are pretty common to find with a Drumulator because of their importance to its sound and cultural impact as a whole. So, I'm going to hit all the pads for you so you can hear them all, and then I will create a track with the Drumulator so you can hear it in action with its original set of ROMs. So, enough yapping, let's hear it. So, let's hear the different sounds. We have the bass drum, snare drum, rim, high tom, middle tom, low tom, and then for percussion, we have the claves, cowbell, claps, the open hats, closed hats, and the cymbal, which is a ride cymbal, I believe. Alright, so now comes the part where I tell you what I think of it. I think it is a pretty advanced drum machine for its age, although it is lacking in some features compared to stuff that came out right before it. Like, for example, the Lindrum has a lot better features, although it was also a lot more expensive. Kind of the goal of this was to be a budget drum machine, putting it more in line with something like the TR-707, which came out 2 years later. Although this does have some capabilities above that because it also has the ability to switch out the ROMs, as I mentioned before. I think most of the limitations of this are just due to it being kind of a budget instrument for the time. So those being that it only has 4 pads for playing the sounds live, although it does have a lot of sounds that you can assign to those pads, and of course if you write a sequence on the Drumulator, you can use all of the sounds. Also, only having one fader to control basically everything parameter-wise on the drum machine, like tempo or the level of each individual sound, and it can get especially annoying when that fader is a little finicky. So I think just like everything of this age, I would recommend it if you can get one serviced. Luckily, electronics like this are not like guitars, where there is some kind of special thing about having original parts. For better or for worse, usually for worse because your wallet is paying the price for it, it is good to get a serviced piece of gear like this, as opposed to having original components, because they will degrade and just flat out go bad and not work. I don't think this is something that necessarily needs to find its place in my studio, but I can absolutely see how it would find its place in the studio of somebody writing a lot of synth pop or 80s style music, new wave, post-punk. I think for me, especially, the fact that it doesn't have MIDI is a big setback. If it did, it might be more of a consideration for me. But the sounds themselves are really good. The ability to swap chips in them to get different sounds is also really good. It's just not for everybody, and its workflow and features are not quite for me. Okay, thank you for watching this video about the Emu Drumulator. I really appreciate you being here for me on these experiences where I take home some pieces of gear. I would not be able to do this without the help of Metronome Music because I do not own this synth, they do. Thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and so does Metronome Music. And I will see you in the next video. Till then, peace.